Well, this is Heathrow Airport and behind me is Terminal 3 where QF32 should have taken off. It was the first plane here cancelled. Great frustration amongst some of the passengers. Many of those passengers had compelling reasons to go back. They were seeing loved ones, weddings, possibly funerals, and of course many people holidaying, going to miss cruises, for example. Here are just some of the stories of those left stranded.
Because we had a limited amount of time, we planned a lot of things, and all of a sudden that's kind of out the window.
I think it's just a degree of frustration. We've got a spreadsheet planned out for the 20 days that we're back. We've got dinners and lunch booked every day, so now we've missed 2 or 3 days worth of friends catching up with them. It's just a lot of frustration, I guess.
Well, we're either going to get stranded in Bangkok, and with floods in Bangkok it's probably not particularly hopeful, or we try to put the Finnair flight off here and wait.
Well, we're just waiting to hear more information as to whether there's a projection as to how long the dispute will continue, and based on that we might be able to make firmer plans.
If we can't get there, we might as well go home and forget the whole trip.
Yeah, it was frustrating because there's Qantas over, there's half a dozen people over there, and all they're telling you to do is to look around to other airlines. It shouldn't be us doing that.
This has come on so quickly, so unexpectedly. People simply weren't prepared for this. Even here at the airport, staff had to be scrambled to be able to tell people what the story was. Now, those that can are rebooking, trying to find alternative methods to get to Australia. Some others, of course, are stranded and very angry about what's happened. The frustration, of course, is building up. Some blame the company, some blame the unions. Most don't care, they just want it over. And that's the one question that can't be answered.
Well, Philip Williams joins us now from our studio in London. And Phil, we're just listening to your package there. Those actually passengers you spoke to sounded surprisingly tolerant as to what has happened, but obviously a lot of frustration. Do we know how Qantas is getting the message out to passengers in the UK, and is it been successful in doing that?
Well, I'm sure it will increase. The message will spread inevitably because it's getting now wide press coverage in this country and beyond. Now, that's a double-edged sword. Of course, it's good for the passengers to get that information. It's terrible for the reputation of the company, of course, which is now seen alongside British Airways, which has been through strikes and stoppages of this sort before and got a bad reputation because of it. Now, Qantas's excellent reputation is no doubt going to be tarnished by this. But yes, people have been told by SMS, by phone call, but obviously many of them missed that message this morning. Just a few hours ago, QF32, which was the first that should have gone when it was all called off, and they turned up, hundreds turned up for the flight. I would say probably most of the people turned up for that flight. They scrambled then in all directions. I saw queues at Singapore Airlines waiting to hopefully to get on a flight there. There were British Airways, they went to British Airways, some were flying Finnair to Bangkok, any way they could, and some simply gave up and went home. You may remember there were an elderly couple there. They were going to have a cruise in Australia that starts on Monday. They said, if we can't get there by Monday, well, what's the point? And they're just about to pull the plug and go home. So there'll be many stories like that. No one goes to Australia for a weekend. It's not a casual trip you make. People are got to have a pretty good reason to go. So that's why they're very upset now that their plans have been upset.
So you mentioned there that it's got wide media exposure in the UK. Obviously doesn't do anything good for the Qantas brand. What about brand Australia and the general issue of tourism for Australia? That can't be good either.
No, it can't be, but I think it's really focused on the airline at the moment rather than the broader Australia look. To be honest, I mean, there's been some very positive publicity about Australia with the visit of the Queen, and we've had lots of good pictures of Australia, but the Queen happy in various locations, and that's a very positive image to project to the world. This then countermands that and leaves a very sour taste in people's mouths, particularly those that haven't been there before or going for their first time. They get this sort of reaction and think, well, perhaps this isn't the country I want to go to after all, and very sour on the whole thing. So we won't really know what the damage is for some months, I think, and we'll see what happens with the airline. But if it can be solved very quickly, and these people shifted very quickly, I'm sure it'll blow over. pretty fast. But obviously it's been a long and bitter dispute so far, and I guess the signs are that even if there are orders back to work or whatever, the actual issue itself, the heart of the issue, probably won't be solved very quickly.
OK, Phil Williams in London, thanks very much.
Thank you.